everybody. Over the next few minutes, my husband and I are going to walk you through what GFamily Missions is and what we stand for and what we are doing. Soon you're going to see a picture of our family up on the screen and a little bit of why we chose the G for GFamily Missions. As you can see, this is myself, Aaron, and my husband, Ross, and our three beautiful kids. Ross is holding Benjamin, Ellie is standing in front of him, and Owen is standing in front of me. Now, of course, we chose the G because we are the girls, which starts with a G because it's a family-focused mission. But in reality, the G is for God. We are God-led, we are God-focused, and we are God-honoring. So really, yes, the G is for girls, but the G is for God because that's what our true focus is.
So we're excited to share with you what the Lord's laid on our heart and the development of our missions group. When we first started this out, it was very important that we were separate from our church, not that we were concerned with anything more than we didn't want to be a burden on our church. Also, we understood that with my personal calling to ministry, that one day we may not be at our current church, and we wanted to be able to continue on and develop the missions field that God's given us. And so that's exactly what we did with this. So here's our mission statement. And as you can read, our essential goal is to spread the gospel. We want to do that through our missions. We want to be able to specifically minister to various places that don't have the gospel and minister to their needs because we believe in empowering those people that are already doing the work. And we also want to connect people, which is a big part of what we believe in. As far as spreading the gospel, the most important thing is serving those who are serving God. That's our top priority. We want to do a lot of the other things. We want to do Goodwill's missions, but it's the most important thing is that we are serving those people already in place and that the gospel is always at the forefront of what we're doing. We also want to be able to provide for things that we're able to. And we pray for, God's guidance on what that is because every place is very specific. And then we try to, again, allow those who are best, prepared to share the gospel and present the gospel to be effective in that. And so that's what we try to do. Right now, our missions is we have 3 phases. Our most important phase is in Cuba because that's the one that we are predominantly in hand. But through Cuba, we are also able to minister to our local community. And we've been able to embed ourselves in different various groups. We've been able to connect different churches to each other. We've been able to connect different youth groups, different events. And it's really been something amazing. And even just as we sit here today and share with you, we're connecting with you and your church and the women in your community. And what an empowering thing that God has been able to use us for. And then lastly, Africa has been a place on Erin's heart for as long as she can remember. And so this year, our family, part of our family is going to Zambia. Myself, Aaron, and our oldest son, Owen, are going to go to Zambia with Love Africa for a variety of different evangelical outreach. And it's changed a few times because some of the atmosphere obviously there changes really quickly. Along with that, though, and through this process, we've become in contact with an orphanage in Uganda. And this is at the very beginning stages currently. We're looking for how we can best help them. We're also looking for through the local Rotary group in Uganda to properly vet them just to make sure that they're an actual legal orphanage, that the children aren't being exploited. I feel fairly confident. I've gone as far as I can in doing that, and now we're in contact with people who are on the ground there continuing that process. And so we hope and pray God will show us how we can become a partner with them as well, because they have many needs and they're sharing the gospel, and we want to help them do both of those things. So, and then lastly, like we talked about, it's all about connections. It's all about relationships. And so the first thing we know that we try to focus on is connecting our communities. And that isn't just the community we live in, it's our church communities. I feel like sometimes we get almost prideful in how we treat our church families, and sometimes we'll shun other churches. Um, Sometimes, and there's a variety of reasons. And when we read the Bible, we see how important, like we should all be striving for unity. Paul calls us to strive for unity, to make it our goal, that the way we love each other will be how people will know that we are from Christ and that we are of Him. And so we want to help churches do that by giving them a common goal. The other thing is we want to connect donors. When me and Aaron first started this, one of the reasons why we felt so led to this mission was partly because we wanted to do more. We sat in the pews for a very long time trying to figure out how we can be more faithful in our call to share the gospel with the world. We understood that, yes, there's a vast need in America. America's the third largest unreached nation. I know that sounds crazy, but we literally rank third in the world with the most amount of people who are considered lost. And we understood this, but we also knew that we had resources other people didn't, and we wanted to be able to reach out to them. And by doing so, hopefully attract those who are lost by our actions, and how we're treating other people. And so we want to do the same for other people who are looking earnestly at well vetted, appropriate, Christ focused, biblically based missions that they can directly donate to without worrying about, is my money being misused or mishandled. And then lastly, we wanted to connect other communities. And this is extending out just beyond our area, extending out into the larger plain of South Carolina. We even have people who, a lot of the lower states in Georgia and North Carolina, and Tennessee and West Virginia that are becoming parts of this. And that's our goal, as well as connecting our people with the people that we're serving. Those relationships are just so valuable, and they cannot be, they are so needed. I am just as much encouraged by serving them and seeing their faith through their trials as they are by us coming and serving them, providing resources and the amount of effort and time that we spend developing and working for them. And so it's a wonderful thing to be a part of, and it's been an awesome blessing to be able to watch what God's done. And so Christ for Cuba essentially began with a call to Cuba several years ago. I sat I was sitting in the pews listening. We had a guest speaker from Canada, and he was talking about how this tiny little church plant with like 50 people max, at any given time, were raising money and serving in Cuba. And I remember I still have the notebook, and I wrote down in there Cuba baseball camp, and I just kind of circled it, and it was just something that I was like, all right, I'll move on. And I didn't really want to think about it much more. I just thought it was like, that's some whimsical idea, whatever. Um, but it was much like a song that you get stuck in your head. It continued to pop up, at moments that felt very random. It continued to show itself at moments that felt very random. And I was having a very tough season, in the fall of 2017. I had just stepped down from football, being a coach for several years, and suddenly I had this vast opening in my life. I didn't know what God wanted to use me for, and I was just pleading with God, show me your will. Like, let me know what your will is, and what you want to do with my life. I feel like I've taken a huge step. I've removed myself from a situation I knew that wasn't Christ honoring, because of my balance. And now I want to serve you, but what do you want me to do? And as clear as a bell, I felt God drawing me to Cuba, and reminding me of the fact that if I couldn't be faithful in something that He has been continuously showing in my life, that he wants me to do, then I wasn't going to be, I couldn't prove myself faithful to be able to have a revelation of anything more. And so I told Aaron, I sat her down and said, Aaron, I think God's calling me to Cuba. And God blessed me with a wonderful wife who gave me a thumbs up, told me to go after it. She had my back 100%. So after a few days of reaching out to people, following my commitment with Aaron, I got blessed to be getting put in contact with a man who worked in Cuba through FCA, and I was given his address, his email address, and we reached out to each other. And it turns out that he was a godsend. His name is Alex Martinez, and he runs Matum. And so Matum is an FCA supported athletic ministry. He is essentially a missionary. They have an outreach program that's focused around creating athletic ministries in churches, and they have over 150 churches they support. I don't know how many athletes they serve because it is an astronomical number, but they have 300 coaches. Almost every place has about two, some even more. And they support, many of them do it by volunteer. There's 30 to 50 of them, depending on how much money is given and allocated that year, that they're able to support in some form or fashion. And so through Alex, we were able to set up our first camp last year and get ourselves, lay the groundwork for what would be the missions as it's growing now. Through Alex, I also was able to meet the people at the Baptist Seminary in Havana, 200 plus students, supporting ministers and missionaries all throughout Cuba and throughout the world. Just a wonderful group of people. And then CCC, which is an orphan and foster child outreach program, as well as a church planting group. And so all of these things were able to come together because just my final submission to God and his calling and the wonderful support that I had from Aaron. And so because of that, we were able to move into 2018 and have a athletic focused mission trip. We did 2 sites, 4 days of coaching and developing relationships. We had over 800 children, almost 1,000. It was just shy of 1,000. We did a worship service. We did. We weren't able to do, the only thing we weren't able to do is the orphan camp with the CCC. That kind of fell through last minute, but that is actually on the slate as we go into 2019. And so this year we've grown. We're doing a 5-day mission trip. We're actually doing our first youth mission trip, taking youth with us. And we have 6 youth members right now that are fundraising and planning and serving, trying to gather enough of the monetary and financial needs they have to cover as they prepare to go on this trip. And a lot of them, this is the first time that they've really gone to a third world country, a place of dire needs beyond just what they're used to. So I'm very excited for them to have an experience like this. We expanded our mission work with CCC, and we're actually going to be working in their community. There's 5 villages, and so we're going to be doing some outreach. Hopefully we'll be able to do some evangelical work and lay the groundwork so they can continue to grow their churches, because they have basically, each community has one house church. And so what we're hoping is that we can fill up and continue to allow them to start the conversation to evangelize to the people there. And then lastly, we're going to be able to look into how is God calling us to grow this missions, how many more areas we can reach, and how many more places that are in need of resources that we can touch on. And so just a brief outline, our C4C camp, which is Christ for Cuba camps, we've expanded from 2 sites to 4. Again, our first youth trip, and we're going to incorporate outreach for children. So instead of last year where we spent half the day coaching And then the other half of the day was filled with like meeting with people, relationship development, and all that. This year, I've really stressed the ability to go and do outreach, typically in that area or nearby, allowing us to do like one area. We're hoping to help with VBS. Um, and then in another area, we want to help, like with the CCC, which is in Baracoa and has the 5 villages. We want to do an actual full blown outreach, have music, have Spanish speaking preachers, the whole works. And then in other areas, it might be doing something more like preparing the groundwork for a building. You're not allowed to build a church outright in Cuba anymore. And so a lot of the houses get converted into churches. They lay a lot of concrete down and stuff. So we may be doing something like that. And then lastly, the thing that excites me the most and Aaron is the work with La Lisa Orphanage. When I went this past spring, I was very much blessed to be able to actually go to the orphanage. There are very tight constraints and control that typically it is very rare that an outside foreign agency is allowed to even get near an orphanage. And I was very blessed to be able to spend 5 minutes in that building. And our goal as we go back is to hopefully be able to arrange where we can work with the students, we can love on them, we can be able to do hopefully more interactions with them directly. But at least, we'll be able to do is provide for them some of the necessities that they are getting overlooked because they don't have parents who are providing more than what the government provides, which is the absolute minimal I think you could survive on. They have very little. And so we're hoping to be able to provide for them in ways that they don't currently have.
The next part we're going to share with you is the women helping women. I know that y'all have already been a big part of that. Most of you already have. And I just want to first thank you for that. Let me give you a little background on how it started. When I was down on my first missions trip in Cuba, I found out that the government gives only 3 feminine products to a woman per month. And as a woman, I know that y'all know just how crazy that sounds. Now, it's not that the products aren't available to them. It's that they are just as expensive here as they are, or there as they are here. So we go to buy a pack of tampons and it's about $5. Well, it's the same price there for them, but whereas we're living on generous amounts of money that we make at work, they're living on $30 to $50 a month. And if you can imagine taking $5 out for something that feels kind of selfish, a woman or a mother's not really going to do. So they find other means and other ways. Well, we have taken it upon ourselves, or, it felt very led on my heart to do something about this. So we've teamed up with a couple churches down there, and Sabdi being one of our main ones. And we have set a goal of 10,000 feminine products to take to Cuba. Now, I know that y'all have already helped with that, and I want to thank you so much. We are at about 5,500 products as of right now. And our next trip is scheduled for July 15th to the 20th. So we've been collecting, we've been raising money, we've been working with them down there. And so we are almost there. As you can see, we're a little over halfway, which is great. We are so excited about that. But just like I said before, we're at meeting a goal of about 10,000 products so we can take that to Cuba.
So our long-term impact, essentially what we would like to do, and how we are trying to direct this underneath the guidance of God is, one, we'd like to continue to do an annual youth mission. We think that this is important. Short-term missions done correctly have a wonderful amount of impacts, and so we're trying to provide a safe place for parents to invest their children into, grow relationships, expose them to not only missionary opportunities, but also opportunities to develop relationships in places and to see what faith looks like in situations that are difficult and oppressive, and just show them what the reality of the world is, and how they can find their own mission field. So we want to expose them to this, and hopefully this is something that will continue. We are very excited about this year being our first one, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot about how we can expand this. The second one is annual medical mission trip, and this is very delicate. The Cuban people are very prideful about their education, and not in a bad sense. It's just they're very proud of how intelligent they are. And I've told people this multiple times, a very intelligent, well-educated place. And so instead of like most typical medical missions that is focused on bringing in doctors, we're going to probably focus ours more toward bringing in resources, bringing in some nurses, nurse practitioners, and doctors, but also partnering with the nurses and doctors that are already there and using them as much as a resource to reach places that are much more rural, much more underserved. We have discovered that if you get outside of Havana and some of these larger cities like Santiago and Holguin, the conditions just completely change. And you go from a place where there's a hospital within 5 or 10 minutes, so there may not be a hospital for an hour. And so that is something that we want to look into. The next step would also be expanding the outreach of MEDUM to both the east and the west of Cuba. Havana is very centrally located. It's somewhat northwesterly, but it's kind of the launching point for a lot of places. And so Havana gets a lot of attention. And what we would like to do is in the future is, one, expand our reach, find other locations that have needs that we can benefit and that we can provide for. Two, help MEDUM expand. Right now, MEDUM is a very westerly focused group because the island is so large and travel is so difficult. And so just this past spring, they have begun to set up different churches and interact with different churches on the eastern coast, but it took almost an entire month to travel all the way around there. And so what we're trying to do is look into the various ways we can help their organization grow. And so, because right now most of it falls on top of Alex Martinez, and that's just a lot to do on your own. And so we're hoping to find him some partners, some leaders that are being risen up down there that are, godly men who can continue to help grow this. And then, of course, as always, we want to support local church growth. And their churches cannot be built. And so we have to focus on building house churches, expanding them, finding facilities, and then providing for the materials to convert those houses and facilities into churches. Lastly, I wanted to share with you just the different faces. This is a piece of artwork that just struck a chord with me. It was in the seminary and the McCall Church, which was started by Southern Baptists. This church itself, I think, has been there since the early 1900s. It's beautiful. But here we see a picture of Alex Martinez and his family. Daenerys is his wife on the left, and that is his son, Joshua. He's just an awesome man of God. And, it's such a wonderful thing to be able to serve him and his family. His wife is just supportive, and she has to do a lot because he's so absent with trying to carry out the message throughout the island. And so it is, it's a struggle for both of them. So keep this family in your prayers because they certainly are serving the Lord. As we move on, we go to CCC. This is Uniel Diamera, and their oldest son, Samuel. David's not in the picture, but they have a wonderful story, which we will cover on a different day. But these wonderful people have given up a life of prosperity, given up a life of comfort. They have settled in a community that doesn't even have consistent, clean running water. Matter of fact, we ran a water test when I was there last, and the water that they pump out of a hand-dug well that Unier and several of the other men in the area dug themselves 55 feet down, hand-dug this well. We did the water test there, and it definitely has some remnants of E. coli and some other very nasty diseases, and they have to boil everything. And they chose this life because they wanted to serve God. They willingly gave up all these other treasures that were worldly in order to serve God. And so I hope at some point you can go check out Unier's story. We're going to have a YouTube video about that coming out probably about 2 weeks. I'll just talk about just him. He is an amazing servant of God, and they're planting churches and working with orphanages throughout the country. Lastly, this is not lastly, but this is Sabdi and Adriel. Sabdi's on the right. That's his wife, and Adriel's the preacher at New Jerusalem Baptist Church, and they have kind of been a focal point for us because of the location. They're very centrally located. They have a very thriving youth program, probably 200 to 300 plus youth come to their church, come to their youth events. They also do ministries where they go out and they preach. Something I didn't know, but Sabdi is actually a professor at the seminary for music. She's an extremely talented musician, extremely talented composer, and so she also is leading up multiple missions for women, focused on supporting women in the area, focused on strengthening and empowering women to share the gospel. And so Aaron and her have struck up just a wonderful relationship, and it's just been a blessing to be able to work with them and come alongside of what they're already doing. And then this church is Villanueva Iglesias Bautista, VIB. This church is such an interesting church because they have a thriving youth program, but this church started as a dream of Vladimir's, who is the head preacher, whom we'll see in a minute. And these grounds that you're looking at right now used to be sacrificial grounds for a pagan god in the Santeria religion. And the church started with just a street ministry, and then they were able to procure this land, and then they cleared out this former sacrificial ground, and they were able to create a magnificent beacon of light in a very, very dark neighborhood. This neighborhood is extremely poor. It's rough. Here you'll see Vladimir talking with Alex. Vladimir is also a seminary professor at the seminary nearby, a very brilliant man. Some of his programs are just outstanding. I've borrowed many things from him in our development for men here, and they are just so focused on getting the gospel into many homes as possible. And so we'll be sharing their story at some point later this summer as well. But they have been thriving. The tornado that just recently went through Havana when I was there in the spring impacted his area. Matter of fact, they lost a young man in the cleanup response 2 days after the tornado came through due to just debris collapsing. And it was part of one of his very first children that he was ministering to in the streets. And so they've been hit heavily. Continue to pray for them. But the Lord has opened them, use that opportunity, use that heartache and that devastation to actually allow them to impact their community. And they were supporting 36 families that were not with the church through the people in their church. And so they were able to do outreach. They've actually had, he last time he told me, he said they had 11 families join their church and commit their lives to Christ since then. And the other families are coming sporadically and starting to become more engaged. And more importantly, the community has opened itself to the idea of this church being a resource. And that was something they were really struggling with before, is how do we reach the community, because no one wanted to hear the gospel through them. And so God has made a way even through the most terrible of incidences. So just continue to pray for them. Supply Alomar is another area that we serve. It is on the easterly side of Havana, and it is made up of about 20 to 30 of these large complexes, these concrete complexes, very reminiscent of projects in larger cities. You can see all the water barrels, people hanging stuff outside their yards. There's a lot of crumbling buildings here as well. And here is the location of the newest church plant there. It is headed up by Arturo and his wife Norris. They have 4 beautiful children. And their hope in the future, and our hope in the future, is to be able to turn all of this dirted area in the back into a concrete pad. And I know that we're thinking that's crazy, like they got these beautiful trees and all. But the reality is this: they don't have any room in their house with 4 children to house the church, so they have to meet outside. And so the hope and plan is to be able to concrete all this in to give the children a safe place to play, as far as like futsal or basketball, also to provide some shelter, because we would put in an overhang for part of this to provide shelter for their youth meetings, provide shelter and teaching areas for their church, and also to be able to bring the church outside would hopefully attract more people and more attention. Right now, they currently have, last I talked to them, they had 20 plus members already meeting, and they were meeting in his living room. And I'm not really sure how they got 20 people in there, because we had 10 people in there when we came to visit him last, and it was tight. It was shoulder to shoulder. So, but they're doing such a great work. Here's a picture of Arturo, who's a dead center. To his left are two of his faithful members of his youth team. Matter of fact, the young man that he has his arm around is one of his coaches for his soccer team. And then on his right is a fellow lay worker, and the little child I am holding is his youngest son, David. And like I said, they're just a beautiful family, and we're just so blessed. And then this is just a picture of the location of the field that we work at while we're there. This is owned by the government, but Arturo is part of the board that allocates use, and so he's able to allow us to have use here. And just to give you kind of an insight of how things work there, I asked him, I was like, well, do you want us to come and do like a lot of cleanup and pretty it up and make it look nice? He's like, no, don't do that. He's like, if we make it look too nice, the government will take it back and use it for official business, and we won't be able to have access to it. So it's like, we don't overdo it. We make it playable. And so that's just something that we have to keep in mind that when you go into these situations, is having a grasp of what is best for everybody. So as we move out and we prepare to move on, we will take a quick peek at just a couple other ways you can help serve us. So how can you get involved? Many of you are already doing this, but we wanted to make sure we give you the couple different avenues that we have, because again, what we talked about from the beginning is relationships and connections is a lot of what we're about. And so we want people to feel like they have an involvement in as much way as possible. It's something that was laid in our heart when we began this. And so if you're interested, there's a couple different routes. And the main focus, like we said from the get-go, is to make a difference in the kingdom of God. If you're interested in missions and you would like to be a part of one of our mission teams, either with Christ for Cuba or in the future with maybe Africa, just reach out to us. If we are able to work something out, we would love to. We're always looking for opportunities to connect people to those we're serving. So feel free to reach out to us through that route.
As you all know, missions-based organizations need finances to do everything. Now, I wish that we could put it all out of our pocket and pay for everything and never have to ask for money, but that's just not how it works. So many people I know, and most of you have already supported by donating financially to our cause, and we just thank you so much for that. We also want you to know all of the money donated to our organization goes directly to funding our missions. Now, you can go to our website, GFamilyMissions.com, and check out all the different ways that you can donate and support us. There's a list of items on that page as well of things that we need and things that we are collecting. From feminine products to children's clothes to newborn supplies, general hygiene products, all of these different things. We are always going to be going down to Cuba. We try to go every 6 months. So we're able to take actual items with us down there. So yes, financially, we would love to be blessed, but we also need all of these items as well. Another way that you can help is kind of a neat way. We have partnered with Juice Plus, which is an organization that has a mission to get America healthy. Not only America, but it's also in other countries too, like Australia and Europe and everything. It is a nutrition-based product. It is a whole food product. So they take all fruits and vegetables and berries and they vine ripen. They pick them off, vine ripen. Then they dehydrate them. They take the sugar out and then leave all the good nutrients in a capsule or in a gummy. And it gives you basically your 9 to 13 servings of fruits, vegetables, and berries that you need daily, that the doctor said that we need, which we can't get just, on a daily basis. I can't eat that much salad. I don't know about you. But so we noticed that, a large part of the population, when we were going down there, we were trying to get them medicine, for their allergies and for the stomach issues and for this. But then when we took a step back, we noticed that it's, they're suffering from nutritional related illnesses. And then we've decided, hey, this is an amazing product that can also be a sustainable income for our missions. So it just was, a win-win. And if it wasn't for a sweet friend sharing her story with how it got her family healthy here in America, I would have never known about it. And just God has been so good by blessing us with Juice Plus and with the team of people to help pray for our organization, to help pray for Cuba, and to help get them, the products that they need. And our goal is to provide Juice Plus for every child in the orphanage, which is La Lisa Orphanage. There are 16 children there as of right now. And we are at supporting 9 of them for 6 months. That's where we are right now. And that is through people buying products for themselves, people buying products for their grandchildren, for their children, and people supporting and choosing to financially support a child at the orphanage with Juice Plus. The great thing also, just one other thing about Juice Plus, is that with each adult order, a child in your family is free. So that is just another wonderful thing that they offer to do, because we just really want to not only get Cuba healthy and the kids there, but we want to help America get healthy as well, all while raising money for our missions. Now, how can you stay connected? I know that there is some space in between us. So if you would like to know more about what God is doing in our missions, we can keep you informed. And you can do this by simply going to Facebook and liking GFamily Missions. You can go to Instagram and like GFamily Missions, or you can go to YouTube and like GFamily Missions, as well as following on our website. You can go there every day, and all of these feeds from Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pop up on the front screen of our website. So please go and follow us so you can keep up to date with what we are doing.
All right, guys. So this kind of concludes just an overview of everything that we have going on and who we are. We first want to thank you. Thank you so much for giving what you've already provided, and know that it's going directly into the hands of people who are in need, people who are using it as a tool to help share the gospel, and to do God's work. And also know that anything that you donate in the future does the same thing. So we thank you for your donations. We thank you for your prayer. There are so many amazing moments down there where God has done something far beyond anything we could ever claim as our own. And so we continue to ask people to cover us in prayer, cover our youth in prayer, cover our teams in prayer, cover our fundraising opportunities in prayer, because we continue to be able to do far beyond. So we thank you, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you, guys, and be blessed.